You hear the term carbon footprint thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? Well, it's not just some vague buzzword. It's a very specific, calculated number. So today, we're going to break down exactly what it is and how we get to that number.
You know, we all leave a mark on the world, but unlike a footprint you might leave in the sand, our environmental impact is, well, it's mostly invisible. It's not measured in inches, but in tons of gas. So the real challenge is, how do you make this invisible footprint visible? All right, so first things first, let's get the official definition on the table. What exactly is a carbon footprint?
Basically, think of it as a universal yardstick for climate impact. It takes all the different greenhouse gases that come from any activity, I'm talking everything from making a t-shirt to just powering your home, and it converts them all into one single standardized score. It's the tool that lets us compare apples and oranges, environmentally speaking.
Now here's something that trips a lot of people up. The name itself, carbon footprint, is actually a little bit misleading because it's about way more than just carbon dioxide. So is it just about carbon too? The answer to that is a big nope, not even close. The term carbon footprint is really a catch-all for a whole family of different gases that trap heat. Yeah, we're talking about these 6 major troublemakers, and each one has a totally different ability to trap heat in the atmosphere. The way to think about it is this. A tiny amount of something really potent, like that sulfur hexafluoride at the bottom, can have a much bigger warming effect than even a large amount of CO2.
So that brings up a huge question, right? How on earth can you add up the impact of 6 totally different gases? It's kind of like trying to get a single total from a shopping cart with apples, oranges, and bananas. You've got to find a common unit of measurement first.
And the way we do it is with this really clever scientific tool called global warming potential, or GWP for short. What it does is it measures how much heat each of those gases can trap compared to our baseline, which is always carbon dioxide. This little number is the absolute key to making all these different gases comparable.
Honestly, the absolute best way to think about GWP is as a currency exchange rate, but for gases. CO2 is our baseline. It's like our US dollar. GWP gives us the exchange rate to convert every other gas, whether it's the euro or the yen, back into that single dollar value so we can see what it's all worth together.
And once everything is converted using that GWP exchange rate, we finally get our universal unit, the CO2 equivalent, or CO2e. This is what lets us add everything up into one final number. That single figure, that's your carbon footprint.
Okay, so we know what to measure. All those gases all converted into CO2e. But the next logical question is, where do you measure? I mean, if you're calculating a footprint for a company, you have to draw a clear boundary around what you're counting.
The standard way to do this is to break emissions into 3 scopes. Let's say you own a bakery. Scope 1 is the gas you burn in your own ovens, the stuff happening right there. Scope 2 is the emissions from the power plant that generates the electricity you buy for your lights. And Scope 3? Well, that's everything else, from the farm that grew your flour to the trucks that deliver your bread. It's the whole shebang. So, with all that background in place, we can finally get to the actual math. And you might be surprised by just how simple the basic formula really is. The entire calculation really boils down to this one simple equation. Your carbon footprint equals your activity data multiplied by an emission factor. That's it. So let's quickly break down what those two things actually mean.
It's a pretty simple 2-step. First, your activity data is just the raw number of what you did. How many liters of fuel you used, how many kilowatt hours of electricity you bought. Then you multiply that by the emission factor. That's the magic number scientifically calculated that turns your activity into emissions. So liters of fuel times kilograms of CO2e per liter, bam, that's your footprint for that trip.
So we have the gases, we have the conversion rates, we have the scopes, and we have the formula. But why? Why go through all this trouble to calculate this one number? What's the point?
Well, for a business, knowing your carbon footprint is absolutely essential these days. It's about managing risk, it's about complying with regulations, it's about being transparent. But honestly, it's also just smart business. Identifying where you're emitting is usually the first step to finding where you're wasting energy and, well, money. It's really a core part of modern strategy.
And hey, this isn't just for big companies. For us as individuals, it provides some really crucial context. To give you a benchmark, the global average footprint back in 2014 was about 5 tons of CO2e per person. Knowing a number like that is really the first step to understanding our own personal impact.
At the end of the day, a carbon footprint isn't the solution itself, it's the diagnosis. It's like the "you are here" dot on the map of climate action. It gives us the data, the baseline we need to start acting intelligently, because you really can't manage what you don't measure. So the real question is, once we have that number, what's our next move?